For more chapters, join my Patreon, link in description. Chapter 91. Celebration 1. Recently, Renee has been experiencing a series of things that made her lose hair. The arguments with the aristocratic students, the setback in class because of her non-attribute magic, and the men who are interested in her and bother her. There were fun and happy things, but there were more things that she didn't like. It was the same now. Now that the first test was over, Ainz students were taking a break to make the most of their few free classes. Some were already studying because their pride was hurt when they failed the test, but it was none of Renee's business. She seemed to have done well on this test no matter how much she thought about it. I was going to take a break. The older students also agreed that it would be difficult to rest after this, so if she was going to rest, she should rest now. Renee agreed with them and tried to take a break. Why am I here? She lifted her slightly bowed head and looked at the man sitting comfortably opposite her. What's wrong? Freuden Olberg asked if he felt her gaze. Looking at him again, he is a very handsome young man. The eldest son of Olberg and the man who will be the next leader of the Duke family was sitting face to face with her now. They were also eating alone in a small vacant lot where people do not visit. How did this happen? Renee was dizzy from the splendid taste of the food in her mouth and the gap between them. Obviously, they've met and eaten like this before, but she thought it was just Freuden pity because her lunch fell on the floor. I thought this would never happen again after that. We just ran into each other on the street. At that time, she was looking for a place to eat while holding a lunch box, thinking that she should be especially careful. However, she didn't really want to go to the student restaurant. She didn't have any friends to eat with, and going to a place where many people gather would attract too much attention. How could she eat peacefully when people are staring at her? In such a situation, the food she ate made her stomach feel stuffy. But isn't it too much to eat in the bathroom? She doesn't want the rumor that she doesn't have friends and eats alone in the bathroom to spread. That's why she came outside. Who knew she would run into Freuden here? Maybe he was on his way to eat too, since he was moving alone with a lunch basket. Are you going to eat? What? Oh, yes. Let's eat together. There was no way she could refuse, so Renee eventually ended up eating with Freuden, and that's the situation right now. Looking back, it's a really fancy meal. Looking at the Freuden lunchbox, Renee realized how terrible the lunchbox she had packed was. As she's pressed for money, all she's going to eat is steamed potatoes and some vegetables. Her reality was that she could not even dream of meat. While she was depressed, meat was piled up on her lunchbox. Oh, senior, eat more. What? Come to think of it, mine has too much meat. Freuden said so and concentrated on the meal again. Renee thought about whether to reject this or not, but she decided to eat it because she thought it would be a waste to throw it away. More than that, it's amazing. While eating the delicious meat, Renee had no choice but to wonder. I think Senior brought more food than before. Who was he trying to give it to? Maybe he made an appointment with someone, but he went with her instead because they met by coincidence. Is it good luck or bad luck? Renee decided not to dwell on it. It's delicious. It's been a while since she had meat. It was so awkward, but the delicious meal was over. Then, I'll go now. Freuden stood up saying that he had to take care of the garden. At least for this moment, he didn't seem to want to be disturbed by anyone, so she nodded her head saying she enjoyed the meal and left. I think Senior is a good person. She didn't think deeply about why Freuden was nice to her. She thought Freuden was just a good person. Because he didn't seem to have any bad intentions. He did not discriminate against her because she was commoner, and it was Freuden who even saved her when she was in danger. For some, Freuden may seem like a scary villain, but at least Renee didn't think so. She had a feeling that he was a good person. Renee had a special sense of recognizing the hostility or danger of others toward her. It's not magical, it's just a vague feeling, but she quite trusted this feeling of hers. In fact, this sense of hers was right almost every time. The atmosphere of those who approached her because they were attracted by her appearance, and those who helped her with her pure good intentions were different. It was the same when I came to Theon. Jealousy, contempt, possessiveness, etc. All sorts of different emotions were directed at her, and Renee avoided them as much as possible. There was darkness behind the students who approached her and said they were the same commoners, and the aristocrats who approached with a friendly smile, so Renée didn't get along with other people carelessly, because she couldn't. She knew what was behind their smiles, but Freuden was different. That's why Renée joined him and ate together. Otherwise, she would have rejected his suggestion. There aren't many people like this. It's fascinating. Currently, there are only a handful of people who do not have any ill will toward Renée and Theon. Among them, if she had to pick a representative person, there was Freuden Ulberg, whom she had a meal with a while ago. There is also Senior Erendir and... The last thing that comes to mind is the figure of Rudger who gave her a book about non-attribute magic. Mr. Rudger Chelisai. Rudger's sharp gaze towards her seemed to be filled with dissatisfaction in everything, but Renée knew that he was not hostile towards her. Rather, he had goodwill that it was strangely different from others. He doesn't show his affection for her, but rather a slightly darker side. Renée felt that it was sorry or guilt. Why, she couldn't be sure, but it just looked like it. Oh my! Renée rubbed her eyes with her hands. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but Renée felt itchy around her eyelids these days. A person stood silently in front of Renée, who rubbed her eyes like that and looked straight ahead again. She was so startled that she didn't even scream. The man in front of her smiled and greeted her, regardless of her condition. "Hi, you're Renée, right?" "Oh, yes, but who are you?" He was wearing the same student uniform as her, but looking at his name tag it said second grade. He was a handsome man with a big smile, and his slightly scarlet hair was tied in a tail. His slightly open squint seemed to be very nice, but Renée was under the impression that he was a little like a snake. That meant that he must have a motive to approach her, but Renée didn't run away because she didn't feel any hostility from him. Instead, she felt extreme curiosity from the man in front of her. I recently wondered what Freuden was doing alone. "Oh, are you a friend of Senior Freuden?" "Senior." Was it unexpected that she called him Senior Freuden Senior without any hesitation? The squinty man opened his eyes slightly and soon giggled. "Yes, we're friends. My name is Henry Presto, a friend of Freudian. Nice to meet you." "My name is Renée." "Yes, I already know that." "Oh. Don't look so wary. I was just amazed that my friend Freuden, who has always been lonely, packed a lunch box and moved to meet someone in person on a holiday. Have you two met before?" "Well, how do you?" "I have my ways." Renée realized that Henry was an extraordinary man. He doesn't have any hostility towards her, but she was sure that he is dangerous. He knows things that other people don't know. Ha ha, you don't have to be so wary. Yes. Even if he said that, Renée stared at him with a disapproving gaze. Henry scratched his cheek with a smile, thinking he had made a mistake from the beginning. "Well, am I being suspected? Then I will give you good information as an apology." "Good information?" "Yes, good information. You're having a hard time these days, aren't you?" "What?" Line reacted and regretted it later. She had to pretend she didn't, but he was so right on the point that she revealed it. "Ah, it's not. Everyone is the same. Other students need money, so they work a lot of part-time jobs here and there or go to the commission board and get a commission. But, to be honest, accepting a request is cumbersome, and you can't tell which is dangerous and which is not. So the most stable thing is to make a living by doing chores inside Theon." "That's true. In fact, Lynn was recently looking for a bunch of people to make money. I know a lot about the things that are convenient and make a lot of money. Honey information that other students do not know. I can tell you that. Aren't you a senior?" "Yes, I am, but I know a lot about how things work in Theon. What do you think?" Renée was quite suspicious of Henry's sudden offer. Normally, she wouldn't have listened to it, but things were different now because she was actually really short of money. Henry's offer came at the right time. Moreover, he had no hostility towards her. "Why are you telling me this?" "We met for the first time today. To be honest, is it because of curiosity?" "Curiosity? It was amazing that Freuden had a meal with a commoner girl. Is that amazing? I think it's because the senior is a good person." "Who's good, Freudian? Ha 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 ha." Henry laughed out loud as if he had heard something funny. "Why are you laughing?" "Oh yeah, that's right. Freuden is a good man. That's how I felt after watching Freuden for a long time. Anyway, so I'm kind of interested in you." "Why does the word interest?" make my heart flutter instead of pounding in my chest, so I'm going to help. It won't be bad for you either. If you listen to what's going on, you'll be tempted too. The work is easy and the pay is high. The pay is high. Line's ears pricked and moved. What do you think? Are you interested? Let's hear it first. You will not regret it. A large banquet hall. One by one, guests entered the banquet hall where beautiful light flowed out. All of them were high-ranking people dressed in luxurious clothes. Hey, isn't this Senator Thomas? Oh, Count Gerald, long time no see. You're still alive. Ha ha, how could I possibly miss this? Inside the colorful and clean banquet hall, well-dressed people gathered to chat. Wow. Classical music. A chandelier sparkling in vermilion along with the polished marble floor to the dining table around made Renee express her admiration on the inside. It was the first time in her life that she had come to such a place. The reason why she came here was simple. It was all thanks to Henry's recommendation. He said, I just heard of a part-time job where you only need to carry plates at a party. But how in the world was this a party? But this is way beyond common sense. This kind of job is so uncomfortable. Renee swallowed the complaint inwardly. She feels like she's been tricked by Henry. Still, the pay is great. Whatever it is, there's really not much to do, and it's a simple part-time job where you just have to stand still. In fact, there were several other students of Theon besides her. What kind of party is being held here? It may not be once or twice that the upper class of society is having parties, but Line guessed that this party was not a usual one. The door of the banquet hall opened and new guests came in. Oh, the main characters are finally here. Are they the newly appointed teachers? Following the crowd's gaze, Line turned and looked at the entrance. Familiar faces were seen through the wide-open door. Oh, it's Teacher Selena. Dressed in an unusually colorful dress, she was entering the banquet hall with a face full of pressure. Next to her, Teacher Merida escorts her in a purple dress with a deep back. In addition, other teachers appeared one by one. There was Chris Benimore and Teacher Bruno. All of them were new teachers. Oh, then. Renee's eyes naturally headed for the entrance of the banquet hall, which was wide open. There was one person who hadn't come yet. Thump. The sound of shoes knocking on the marble floor passed through the banquet hall. It's not just an illusion that the normal steps sound unusually loud only when people are buried in their own noise. There is a moment of silence in the banquet hall. Even the soft sound of the instruments remained silent for a moment. All eyes turned to the entrance. Whoa. There was a man coming into the banquet hall. He was wearing a long black tailcoat tailored to the dress code, a black coat over his shoulder, and held a cane in one hand. Unlike usual, his bangs were neatly pulled back. Roger Chelisai. The man who received everyone's attention glanced over the banquet hall with an emotionless look. Chapter 92. Celebration 2. As he entered the banquet held to celebrate the appointment of Theon's new teacher, gazes flew over him like arrows. There are a lot of people. I was embarrassed for a moment because the eyes were full of burdensome attention, but I kept my calm appearance and headed inside. Rather, when it comes to banquet halls, don't they usually play music to maintain a soft atmosphere? Why are they staying still? Hasn't the party started yet? With that in mind, I leaned my back against one of the walls to get a full view of the banquet hall. In an instant, the stopped time began to flow again. The people who were talking to each other continued the conversation from a while ago, and some of them rolled their eyes and burst into laughter, as if they were having fun. However, the basis of such behavior was full of pretense that was hard to hide. I can even feel the illusion that it flows out and spreads around like a black fog. They're not talking to each other, they're watching someone else. Especially me. If I said this, I might seem paranoid, but there's no way that I, who is sensitive to such gazes, would not know. Most of the people were either looking sideways at me or glaring at me. I could fully guess why. This banquet is held with the purpose of making relationships. Theon's new teachers are young and have excellent magical skills, so they think that it would be good to make a relationship with them, even a little. Indeed, as I was watching, the people in the banquet hall began to move. Oh, Miss Selena, good to meet you. I'm a member of the House of Representatives, Charles. Are you Miss Merilda? My name is Walt Miller, a director of a magic potion manufacturing company. Are you interested? Oh, Count Chris Benimore. As rumored, you are really handsome. I checked the faces of the people in this banquet hall. All of them were rich and noble people, city councilors, aristocrats, wealthy businessmen, etc. All of them are Theon supporters. Theon needs a huge budget for operations like magic research, class materials, special materials, all kinds of infrastructure, etc. Considering the cost of raising a single wizard, the amount of money spent at the academy that trains a large number of elite wizards every year is bound to be astronomical. My starting salary as a new teacher right now made my mouth water. Considering other miscellaneous expenses, it would be difficult to imagine the detailed amount. It is difficult for the Theon Academy to cover the money on its own. Theon is not an international bank, and money cannot be printed and distributed like a factory. In order to invest a huge amount of money, it is inevitable to receive external support, and all the people here smell of money. There are people who need money and people with money, but who want to get something more, and in this hall transactions that benefit both parties are made. That's why Theon belongs to the Empire, but it is not purely part of the Empire. All kinds of countries have invested in Theon. Not only the Exilian Empire, but also Delike, Queodon, Utah, Bretis, Fatima, etc., and even the huge capitalists without borders, regardless of country. It wouldn't be unusual for them to put a face stamp on talented people who might make a name for themselves in the future. This is a kind of annual event that is held to the point that it is tiresome to ask why. It is a place to build personal connections under the pretext of congratulating the new teachers. As I watched the desire wriggle, someone approached me. "Nice to meet you. Are you Professor Rudger Chelisai?" I replied with a slight nod. "Yes, but nice to meet you. I'm Count Deckers, one of Theon's supporters." I wondered why he didn't move until now, but he was measuring me. When Count Deckers stepped forward first, people who were only looking at him began to move one by one. Once someone started, it was easy for others to move. I wasn't happy with the situation. What should I do? If I leave it like this, things will become messy. I'm here not to have a formal conversation with strangers. I came with the intention of finding the First Order of the Black Dawn Society hiding in the banquet hall. The process had to be natural, and I didn't want anyone to disturb me, but from the start I got tangled up by these people before I could even start. If this is the case, I have no choice but to push myself a little harder. "I'm sorry." I spoke firmly to Count Deckers, who spoke to me with a heavy air. "I don't feel like talking to anyone right now." "What did you say?" I said. "I'd appreciate it if you could step aside for a while." My tone sounded like I didn't even want to come here. As I said it, narrowing my eyes, Count Deckers swallowed his saliva and then hurriedly nodded his head. "I'm sorry I wasted your time. I'm glad you're quick-witted, and so were the people around him." When Count Deckers left without doing anything, those who were watching from a few feet away stepped back. They are clearly inferior to the Count Deckers, and since he had not been able to speak with me, they gave up. I think the first round is over. The problem is, there are many people who haven't given up yet. I don't know exactly who Count Deckers is, but considering his position, he must have been above average among those gathered at this banquet hall. The fact that there are people who don't give up giving me persistent eyes when such a person has stepped down naturally proves that their level is high. I'm sure they're pretty annoying people. I'm not happy if such people come forward and talk to me. As I was thinking about how to solve this, I saw a woman with pink hair and a pink dress. It was Teacher Selena, who was embarrassed by a young man's blatant approach. Maybe. I pulled my back from the wall and walked toward Teacher Selena. Some people see me moving and look at me with curious eyes, but I lightly ignored them. Someone plucked up the courage to try to talk to me in the middle, but I blocked all their actions by shaking my hand lightly. "Selena, how about having a drink with me? I know a good place." I'm sorry. I don't really like unfamiliar places. Why are you refusing? It's a place where it's hard for ordinary people to go. Oh no, I mean That's enough. As I stepped up and spoke, the person who was flirting with Selena Teacher looked this way. What is this? He distorted his face with irritation, perhaps because he thought he was disturbed. I stared at him in silence. He's in his late 20s, clothing that looks luxurious, a bad posture with one leg without proper standing, and a self-conceited, defiant look. I looked around. All the guys who were after Selina have gone away, although Selina is a commoner. She is capable enough to become a teacher of Theon at a young age. In addition, with her striking beauty and a good personality, she must have been quite fascinating for people seeking personal connections. Rather, it would be easier to approach her because she was a commoner rather than aristocrat. It sounds like he's a high-ranking noble. His family is so strong that even small and medium-sized aristocrats can't speak, but that doesn't concern me. It's rude to trouble a lady. "Oh, so who are you?" Then Selina looked back at me and opened her eyes wide. "Teacher Rudger?" "Rudger? Who's that?" He doesn't recognize me. Seeing that he was saying that sincerely rather than deliberately, I was very embarrassed. It was at the moment I was thinking about whether I should introduce myself as a new teacher of Theon. A man who looked old among the crowd rushed up, approached the man in front of me, and whispered something in his ear. He is dressed for the party, but I could tell he is a wizard. Maybe he's telling me who I am. So what? With that intention in mind, the man let out a sigh as if it was ridiculous. "Oh, really? Maybe it's because he's a fallen aristocrat, but there's nothing in his head." The words made the faces of the nobles watching the situation cold. However, some people who knew about this man were showing signs of resignation as if they knew it would happen. Judging by that reaction alone, it must not have been the first time he spoke such nonsense. "My name is Ivan Luke. Have you heard of it? Don't you know Luke? When it comes to Lukes, it's a name even the back alley beggars have heard of." I know the name Luke well. Founded by Theodore Luke, Luke is one of the richest conglomerates in the empire. Luke's has spread its influence throughout the empire to such an extent that it is said to reach out to any field where money exists. Naturally, as a businessman, the name Luke could never be taken lightly. Above all, Luke is the owner of Kunst, which hosts the upcoming auction. Given that Ivan's last name is Luke, he is probably the descendant of Theodore Luke, the founder of Luke's company. Thinking that he was the second generation of a rich conglomerate, I immediately understood the person in front of me. A fallen noble like you is not someone who should make eye contact and talk with others in this place. If you understand, get out of my way, I'll let you off the hook. This is a bothersome situation. I just came in with the intention of removing the flies that were bothering Selina. Apparently, the person in cause was a descendant of Luke. It seems that while I was trying to remove some flies, I pocked a beehive. Behind my back, Selina's slender hands were shaking as she held my sleeve. If I step down from here, that jerk will try to force Selina to go with him. I can't help it. "Hey, get out of the way, I'm sorry," I said, staring at Ivan with unwavering eyes. "Miss, Selina has a prior contract with me first." My face didn't change while I lied. "Isn't that so, Teacher Selina?" Oh, perhaps reading something in that action, she nodded hastily. Yes, that's right." Ivan Luke's face was horribly distorted. "Hey, are you kidding me?" "Do I look like I'm kidding?" "What? Ha, you're a funny guy. Just because you're a Theon teacher or something, do you think I'm going to quit?" Ivan strode up to me, saying so. Then he raised his right hand and tried to push my shoulder, but he couldn't because I was faster, and grabbed his wrist. What are you doing? Aren't you going to let go of my hand?" "If you say so, I'll give you the same treatment," I said, and increased the strength of my grip on his wrist. "Did you think I'd step down just because you're a member of the Luke family?" Chapter 93, Magic Duel 1. Gasp, let go of me. Ivan Luke opened his eyes to the intense pressure on his wrist and tried to shake off his arm. Wow, what kind of power is that? His hand doesn't budge. As such, Rudger's grip was stronger than he could have imagined. Evan, who thought that the wizards were a group of people who only read books, was shocked. "Hey, aren't you going to let this go? You don't know who I am. Do you want to lose your teaching job right now? If you can." There was a slight shadow on Rudger's face as he looked down at him. "Try it." This? Let's stop there. It was Ivan's attendant who intervened between Rudger and Ivan. Rudger stared at him and looked around with a sidelong glance. Before he knew it, security guards stood around him as if they were surrounding Ivan. The attendant stared at Rudger with a gloomy gaze. "Stop there and let go of that hand. Otherwise..." Otherwise, what do you intend to do? Roger asked back in a blunt voice. The moment the attendant was about to say that he would regret it, his voice didn't come out properly. He gulped and felt a cold sweat running over his forehead. This guy. He's out of the ordinary. He thought he would win if they fought. Although Roger is a teacher at Theon, he is a professional wizard directly employed by Luke. Now he is bowing his head to a kid who is much younger than him, and he is constantly swearing, but his skills are inferior and he can't do anything. This look. This spirit. I feel like my bones are freezing even though I'm simply facing him. Is he really a new teacher? The aide changed his mind when he saw Evan huffing while trying to step back. He couldn't back down from here. Even if Ivan Lukes is a jerk, he is the chairman's only blood. Although Ivan does not have the ability to inherit his legacy, and the president also did not show much affection for Ivan, he was still treated like a blood relative. That's why he was looking after him. The 3 bodyguards were even made up of members of the Knights Academy. Yeah, we won't lose. However, the only thing that bothered him is that the location is not good. If there was a quarrel on a dark road with no one around, he could just deal with it quietly, but this a banquet hall full of people. All sorts of distinguished guests were watching the situation with interest. Although it is said that the character of the master has already spread throughout the society, if we try to suppress the situation here with force, the image of the group will be severely damaged. It's embarrassing and annoying, but in the current situation, he had to deal with it as best he could. The assistant finished his calculations and started talking. Let's stop here. If we start fighting in this location, we'll hurt other people. As the assistant said as gently as possible, Roger let go of Ivan's hand. Barely freed, Ivan grabbed his throbbing wrist and licked his lips. Hey, you bloody fallen aristocrat. Young master, let's stop here. There are a lot of eyes on us right now. The aide intended to end the situation as much as possible before Ivan did anything, but when he tried to persuade him to stop, Ivan slapped him on the cheek with all his might. Hey, you punk, I told you to call me director. I'm sorry, director. And, my arm, can't you see this? You want me to step down after all this? You want to get fired? No. Suddenly, the atmosphere began to take a strange turn. The assistant sighed inwardly as he saw Ivan's bloodshot eyes. It seemed that the situation could no longer be solved through conversation. Do you think I should just let it slide in front of people like this? Answer me. No, right. Ivan glanced at Roger with eyes full of hostility. Hey, you're done. I'll make sure you're fired on the spot. You know what? I keep my word. Ivan Luke is a director of the Luke family, and under the protection of the chairman, he is a troublemaker, but the weight of his power was never light. It was nothing to cut a new teacher if Luke, who gives Theon a huge amount of funding every year, was determined to put pressure on it. Roger, who was watching the scene from beginning to end, wondered what was going on. Originally, he should have quietly left his seat and started searching for the First Order, but Ivan ruined his plans. There are a lot of eyes around, but it doesn't seem like anyone will stop me. Roger was just thinking about how to do this when someone intervened. President? Theon President and genius wizard Alyssa Willow, wearing a black dress full of long frills, appeared naturally at the breathtaking scene with an innocent smile. Are you here to help me? When Roger had a curious expectation, Ivan Luke was already annoyed, and when a new interrupter appeared, he stared at Alyssa with an expression as if he wanted to eat her alive. Who are you? Me. I'm the president of Theon. What? Ivan looked at Alyssa slightly bewildered. He's heard of Theon President, but it's the first time he actually saw her, so he didn't recognize her right away. A young woman like this is the president. Ivan rather thought it was good. How did you educate your teachers? Education? What education? That fallen aristocrat has used violence against me. People who watched the situation would not have called it violence, but Ivan believed he was a victim. Alyssa asked Ivan again, still smiling. So what? Fire him right now. If you want to continue to be sponsored by Luke, you'd better. Luke? Ah, you were the son of Chairman Luke. As if Alyssa understood, she clapped her hands and nodded. Ivan smiled around, thinking that someone he can communicate with has come. However, Alicia's following words made his face collapse. So, didn't you hear me now, Luke? The owner of Luke's company is Chairman Theodore, right? So why is it that you decided that on your own? Although I am a director, I am the only son of President Theodore, you know. I have enough power to decide. Oh, really? So have you discussed all this with your father? The remark left Ivan speechless. There is no way that he could have talked with his father since he got angry and shouted without thinking. Oh, my father would feel the same way. I'm his son. Don't you know that? Oh, really? That's a relief. What do you mean by relief? The chairman just happened to be here. What? Ivan's face turned stupid. The chairman is here? No, it can't be. A lie like that won't work. Wouldn't it be better to see for yourself if I lied or not? Alicia said so and moved slightly aside. Ivan was able to find a person spreading a strong presence beyond the crowd obscured by Alyssa. A white-haired old man was standing on his cane and staring at him. Huh! Ivan's face was as pale as a sheet of white paper. He was running wild without knowing the meaning of the word afraid, but he couldn't stand up to his father. Oh, father, you useless fellow, I told you to go and build a network, but what are you doing? That's not it. Stop making excuses. It was troublesome that I entrusted this task to an idiot like you. Chairman Theodore Luke stared at Ivan angrily and bowed his head toward Alyssa. Sorry, President Alyssa, my stupid son did this on his own. It's fine. On the contrary, there are not many people who dare to step forward like that to me these days, so it felt a little fresh. Thank you for saying that. Theodore's gaze soon turned to Roger. He was quite displeased with the situation. Even if Ivan made a mistake in the first place, there was no way he would have been able to admire a man who almost had a fight with his son. It was then that Alyssa suddenly intervened. Oh, but I think I've been a little harsh on your son. President Alyssa, now it's... So I'd like to give you a chance. Now we are going to end the situation neatly between the parties. Theodore read something in her manner and immediately shut up, and it was the same for Roger, who was watching the situation. I was relieved that the president intervened. The president secretly glanced at him. The corners of her mouth were flinching as if she could not bear the entertaining situation. I think she's a little fickle. The fact that she has that kind of personality is something I've come to realize from meeting her several times. I'm thankful that she mediated the situation, but the president seemed to want to lead the game in the direction she wanted. The two of you will compete in front of everyone. What do you think? At those words, the eyes of the audience watching the situation lit up as if they were interested. What she said was simple. A duel. Of course. Ivan doesn't know magic, and Mr. Roger is a wizard, right? In that case, it cannot be an equal match, so I will give Mr. Ivan a chance to choose someone to fight in his place. Ivan didn't understand why Alyssa suddenly said this, but then he stared at Roger, clenched his teeth, and nodded. All right, that's what I wanted. Alyssa tells him that he can use people, so he seems to think it's worth a try. While he was thinking, Alyssa looked back at Roger as if asking, what do you think? Can you do it seeing it? Roger sighed inwardly, but I can't say no. It was Alyssa who calmed down Ivan, who was about to run wild, no matter what anyone said. Besides, the method of duel wasn't bad for him either. If he forces the situation to end vaguely, Ivan will have bad feelings for him for a long time and act behind the scenes. However, if they have a duel in front of everyone and come to a clean conclusion, then the story will be different. Even the chairman is watching, so even Ivan can't go on a rampage afterwards. No, he's just confident he'll win. I will not retaliate for my defeat in a duel in the presence of so many eyes, and if Ivan tries to do something, Theodore, the chairman, won't let him. I'm sorry, Mr. Roger. Because of me? No, it's okay. Roger shook his head at Selena, who was sorry. Even so, I felt that I needed to be in this position at least once. What? There's something like that. In no time, the center of the banquet hall was emptied, and a large space was created. The audience, who retreated outside, stared at Roger with interest. Among them was contempt for Roger coming from his enemy Chris Benimore. In the end, this is how it goes. Ivan chose his assistant as Roger's opponent. Although he's an assistant, he is also a skilled wizard and a person who once served in the military. I'm not going to hold back. He pulled out a cane from his waist and aimed it at Roger. Roger answered with a shrug and lifted a large cane in his hand. Everyone watched the scene breathlessly. A duel between a professional wizard hired by Luke and a new teacher appointed at Theon was a special event that they couldn't see anywhere else. Now, show us a legitimate match. Begin! The observers were President Alicia and Chairman Theodore Luke. At the same time as Alyssa's cry, Ivan's aide quickly started casting a spell. He wanted to end it as fast as he could since it was the best he could do for a talented junior, as a senior on the magic path. I will finish this as quickly as possible without wasting time. The most important things in a magic battle are speed of casting and accuracy. In fact, the way he fought was to cast quick spells and immediately overpower his opponent. He also made significant contributions thanks to these abilities when he joined the military. And the reason why he was hired by Luke after his retirement was because of that. He had been through this kind of duels many times in the past and always won, so he thought this duel will be just like those in the past. What? The moment he was about to unleash his magic, he saw that his opponent manifested a much greater amount of spells that swallowed down his magic like a tidal wave. He didn't even have time to respond. What followed was excruciating pain running through his body, and he fell back unconscious. The surrounding area became quiet in an instant. Chapter 94. Magic Duel 2. The audience didn't understand what was going on at all. The duel, which they thought would be a long and fierce battle, ended too quickly with a one-sided victory. Is this possible? I heard that the other person is a professional hired by Luke. They stared at Roger in disbelief. From before and until now, Roger had never changed his cane-raising posture. His expression also didn't change as if it was natural to win. Winner, Roger Chelisai. Alyssa Willow's bubbly voice signaled the end of the duel. The atmosphere of the banquet hall, which was filled with silence and surprise, finally returned to its original state. Clap. Clap. People began to clap their hands one by one. Just as water droplets fell on the calm water surface and caused a stir, the sound of applause spread like a contagious disease and filled the entire banquet hall. Clap, 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 clap. What a surprise. Is this the power of a Theon teacher? The wizard hired by Luke isn't ordinary, but he was defeated so easily. What the hell were those spells just now? What a quick magic manifestation. I didn't even see him casting the spells. Was the rumor of using an unusual magic true? Contrary to what I expected, the duel itself didn't feel like it ended too quickly. Still, for an impromptu event, it gave quite a lot of enjoyment, so the audience was satisfied. Oh my God, that's amazing. Theodore looked at Alyssa smiling as if he knew this would happen next to him and said, "The aid I gave to my son was a famous wizard, but he was beaten up in an instant. Are all of Theon teachers such monsters? Ha ha. No way. Actually, Mr. Roger is an exceptionally unusual person." Right, I don't think there are more people like him. I wonder if there's anyone worse. I'm sorry for being a worse person, but I was able to show him that way in front of everyone. Theodore smiled and shook his head. I was worried about nothing. It's my fault for having an incompetent son. It was a fair duel, and I will accept this defeat neatly. Having said that, he looked at Ivan, who was still sitting on his seat with a blank expression on his face as if he still couldn't believe his defeat. That stupid fellow won't even accept it and will go wild, but you won't have to worry about it. I'll step up and block everything. As expected, Chairman Theodore, it's nice to talk with you. So I want to ask you a favor. Alicia shook her head like a knife as Theodore Luke tried to speak. You can't. I haven't said anything yet. You want me to introduce you to Mr. Roger, right? Well, you don't have to say that. I'm sorry, but please refrain from reaching out to our teacher. If you say so, there's nothing I can do. At Alicia's subtle warning, Theodore was forced to raise his hands and declare his defeat. Roger is clearly a person who is coveted, but he judged that he was not enough to offend the president of Theon in order to make a relationship with him. Theodore is a big hand who has a huge impact on both the political and business world of the empire, but there were a few people who he could not even touch carelessly, and Alyssa Willow, the woman in front of him, was one of them. Well, it would be shameless of me to bring it up. Theodore said so and glanced sideways at the entrance of the banquet hall, but I don't know what they would do. That's right. Alicia followed Theodore at the entrance to the banquet hall, and her complexion slightly hardened. Unwelcome faces were seen entering the banquet hall. Oh my. Seeing Ivan Luke's aide stretched out in front of my eyes, I was somewhat perplexed. I thought he was a good-looking person, who would have known that he would fall in vain like this. He said that he was strong, so I was serious. I was a little worried because I didn't know what kind of magic my opponent uses. Surprisingly, however, he was a wizard who excelled in rapid magic. The most important thing in a duel between wizards is the speed of casting. Considering that part, the man in front of me could be seen as a talent that specialized in one-on-one duels in a way, and was close to a first-class talent. That's probably why he said he'd deal with me confidently. He must have been convinced that he could defeat me with his special skill. But why use that against me? This was why I was dumbfounded. I'm not bragging, but even if a wizard of 5th rank or higher came, I could keep up with the speed of casting magic due to the source code. As far as 3rd-tier magic is concerned, I can show a speed that I can beat anyone. At this point, I was embarrassed to the point that I thought he came out to lose on purpose. Did he not know I deliberately spread rumors while showing the source code magic openly in the first class? But don't people know by this point? Nevertheless, the fact that he bet on speed, I had to say that the person in front of me didn't know the magic I used. No. Even if he knew, he didn't believe it was real like many other wizards around the world. It doesn't matter that I won. The fallen assistant was carried away by Luke's bodyguards. Ivan, the culprit of all this, was still stunned, unable to believe that he had lost the duel. He soon looked at me and clenched his fist, but he couldn't scream like he did a little while ago, and I also realized that his gaze was over my shoulder. "Are you Roger Chelisai?" I slowly turned my head to look at the owner of the voice. It was an old man with a long white beard stood with a cane. He was an unusual old man. It was because everyone was wearing stylish suits and dresses, and he was wearing a robe. It wouldn't be strange to be kicked out for not following the dress code by the guard who stood at the entrance right away. However, if a logo symbolizing a specific organization is embroidered on the robe, then the situation is different. "Are you from the tower?" "Oh, you can see it right away." The old man's eyes lit up at my words, and he chuckled. Having a logo symbolizing a tall tower contained in a gold circle on his robe, of course, I knew the old man in front of me was a wizard from the tower. Even the foolish Ivan Luke was aware of the existence of the tower, so he stayed in his place. "So why did you come to see me?" He didn't even come alone because behind him were 5 other wizards. "I saw the duel a little while ago. The opponent's spell casting was quick, but you were much more than that. I've never seen anyone cast their magic so quickly in my life." "Is that so? Is that the rumored source code magic?" "I was wondering why you came here. Was it because of this?" I nodded, because it was nothing to hide anyway. "That's right." "Oh, I see, I knew it." The old man reacted like a child who found a great toy. His wrinkled face suddenly showed a strange reaction, and I frowned unknowingly. I asked in a slightly curt tone, "So why did you come to see me?" Oh my, come to think of it, we didn't even say our names to each other, did we?" Far from answering my question, the old man immediately began to introduce himself. "My name is Altigo Dantes, and I am a member of the Tower Council. I'm Roger Chelisai, a teacher at Theon. I know, I went to this humble place myself in the first place to meet you. A humble place, but this is a banquet where VIPs gather, so I think it's too much." Me. I was going to visit Theon in person, but who would have thought that the wicked fox would interfere and sabotage me in every way? Roger immediately knew who Altigo was talking about. "Oh, isn't it Chairman Altigo?" Because the person in question came out with a smile on her face. Altigo frowned outright when he saw that she came. "Alyssa Willow, I can't believe I'm seeing you all in a place like this. Is it okay for the president to be in this? You're so light-hearted, why don't you step down?" "Well, what brings you here, Chairman?" "You said that you don't fit well with fancy events where you have to be formal." "Do I have to tell you that? I'm just here because I have someone to meet." "Ah ha ha, the chairman is very honest. Are you here to see our new teacher?" The president's mood, which had been playful until now, had become sharp from the moment she met Altigo. A young genius wizard like the president must be like water and oil with the stagnant and rotting Tower Council. The council is a symbol of the old generation, and the president is a symbol of the new generation who accepts change and wants to develop further. By the way, this isn't a very suitable place for someone like the chairman to come, right? Did you come here to get something to eat? A wicked fox like you should not block my path. The reason I came here has nothing to do with you. Having said that, Altigo tried to ignore the president and spoke to me. I won't be able to talk for long anyway, so let me be straightforward. Why don't you join our tower? I promise I'll give you the best treatment. Chairman, President Alyssa screamed, and I was also surprised by Altigo's blunt remarks. His behavior now was very rude, but Altigo continued, ignoring the reactions around him. Should a wizard your size just waste his talent teaching a bunch of kids? When I first heard the rumors about the source code, I was skeptical, but after seeing the duel a while ago, I was convinced. You are a talented person suitable for our tower. I will write a letter of recommendation myself. If you come to the tower, you can occupy a particularly high position. Judging from his reaction, it seems that he had tried to contact me before, but he was stopped due to the constant interference from the president, so he decided to come to the banquet for new teachers. It's a good thing for you, too. You won't have to waste your time teaching some little kids. Would those young bastards even know what magic is? But the tower is different. It's the place where every wizard on the continent wants to join. Altigo talked excitedly about the tower. The summary of what he said was the tower it's the best and everything else is trash. He was really arrogant, but in a way he was not too wrong. The majesty of the tower was definitely something he could be proud of. I paused for a moment, pretending to think about it, and then opened my mouth. If I were to go to the tower, what could you do for me? Oh, Mr. Rudger, Altigo knew this would happen, but President Alyssa couldn't believe it. Haha, what do you want? Do you want a lot of money? The amount of support that comes into the tower every year is second to that of Theon. I don't know how much they give you, but we can give you at least 3 times that. Or do you want power? If you come under me and submit a magic thesis, you'll win the position of chief wizard directly under the council. Or do you want a great artifact? I can give it to you if you want to. In that case, I brought up the subject. If I ask for a seat in the Tower Council, will you give it to me? What? Altigo's face contorted for a moment. The same was true of the 5 wizards who were lined up behind him and listening to the conversation. They soon realized what I was saying and turned hostile. What does that mean? You want a seat in the council? Yes. Are you crazy? When you enter the tower, you need to know how to say thank you. We even give you money. But a seat in the council. Do you not know what kind of position that is? I know very well. How can you not know? Isn't it a place for old people who don't have skills? Are you serious, or are you drunk and don't know what you're saying? I'm wide awake. Are you out of your mind? Altigo's face changed to that of a dove that had been shot. He glared at me and gritted his teeth. It's not enough to dare to reject the tower offer and blaspheme the name of the magic tower. Are you still sane? Now that you've developed a new magic, have you ever mistakenly thought that you've become something? The old man, who had been chatting happily until a while ago, was nowhere to be found. Altigo's forehead was filled with blood, and his face was red. There are things that should be said and things that shouldn't be said. I guess I put it in a difficult way. What? So here's what I'm talking about. I looked down at the old man in front of me and said, no matter what you give me, I won't come to the tower. Chapter 95, The Tower. When Rudger told them directly that he would never join the tower, Altigo just opened his mouth and didn't say anything. It was the same with the 5 wizards who followed him. Although they are now called the Old Guard and have declined considerably compared to the heyday of the tower, which wielded absolute power, there were still countless wizards who dreamed of joining the tower. Altigo was one of the 12 members of the Tower Council that only a selected few members of the tower could join, and the reality was that he couldn't even put pressure on the wizard in front of him. But, what did the boy in front of him say now? Even if they give him a seat in the council, he won't join the tower. You punk! How dare you say that in front of me? The first to grasp the situation was one of the 5 disciples Altigo brought. The chairman is kind to the teachers of Theon, so don't be arrogant. Master, you should just ignore a guy like that. He couldn't control his anger, and he looked like he didn't want to be here for even a second. But as soon as he was about to leave, he heard Alyssa's giggling, not Roger's reply. Ha 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 ha. Instead of her usual fake laughter, her laughter was 100% real this time. Altigo was embarrassed by her laughter, and it was the same for the 5 disciples. After a long giggle, Alicia laughed so hard that she had to wipe away her tears with her fingertips. It's so funny. I don't know how long it's been since I laughed like this. Saying that, she returned to her usual appearance. Mr. Roger doesn't want to go, so what can I do? You came all the way here for nothing. It was a good opportunity for Alyssa to tease Altigo since he was rejected by someone much younger than him and had his pride hurt. I told you, Tilda, you'll be rejected anyway, so why bother visiting the academy? Do you think the current tower is still the old one? Can't you watch your mouth? One of Altigo's 5 disciples stepped up in a fit of rage, and Alyssa's expression changed in an instant. What if you don't like it? What? What are you going to do if you don't like it? At the moment Altigo's disciple panicked, a chilling spell erupted from Alicia and began to tighten his body. Cough. He couldn't breathe properly and stared at Alicia with disbelieving eyes. He knew that Alyssa Willow was a genius wizard who achieved the 6th rank at a young age. Even though she was a member of the tower, she suddenly left and became the president of Theon. When the public praised her as a genius, he couldn't take it. If she were a real genius, she should have stayed in the tower and made a name for herself. Why did she left and became Theon president? Of course, he thought that she ran away and went to an academy where she played house for children, because she was afraid that she couldn't handle the situation in the tower. He thought that the rumors about her were exaggerated, and if he met her, he could prove that he was superior. Different dimensions. He couldn't move even a single tip of his finger. It is difficult to even breathe, let alone use magic. He felt like he was deep in the deep sea, filled with endless darkness. But what makes him even more distressed is that Alyssa was at least considerate of him so he could breathe. I'm not her opponent. This was the power of the youngest 6th-level wizard, the power of the Lexora rank, which is the 3rd highest among the existing 8 ranks. Stop it. It was Altigo who broke the overflowing tension with a single word. Alyssa sighed inwardly and withdrew her magic power. Despite his personality, she knows Altigo abilities are real. He is a 6th-level wizard like her, so if they clash for nothing, things will only escalate. Altigo restrained his disciples with a calm voice. You should stop too. Oh, but, sir, Altigo looked back at his disciples in silence. The disciples, who tried to refute something, shut their mouths when they saw Altigo's expressionless face. Let's go. Before leaving, Altigo glared at Alyssa for the last time and then glared over her shoulder at Roger, staring at him with a blank face. You'll definitely pay for it later. Even if he's a no-nonsense person, he's just backing down because his personality isn't so bad that he would make a fuss in a place like this. Altigo promised time and again that he would never forget this disgrace. Usually, in this situation, the other person will also react nervous or embarrassed, but Roger didn't. He only nodded his head slightly. It was like he was saying, try it if you can. Altigo left the banquet hall, biting his molars, and the 5 students, who were at a loss, rushed to follow after Chairman Altigo. Phew! When Altigo disappeared completely, Alyssa relaxed her shoulders. Then, unlike usual, she smiled at Roger with a little tired look. I'm sorry, Mr. Roger. I should have been more thorough. No, the president helped a lot. You don't have to say that. Anyway, the reason I interfered is because I have a bad relationship with them. After saying that, Alyssa asked abruptly, Do you hate the tower? If he had to answer, he would say yes, and it was the same with Alyssa. Actually, I was a magician from the tower. I know. It's actually harder to find a wizard on the continent who's not from the tower. Anyway, I called a genius there. Oh, that's too much bragging about myself. That's all right. I worked hard there, but the tower is a bit old-fashioned, isn't it? These days, science and magic are advancing, so it was hard for old people in the tower to accept them, and we fought a lot. The old and new towers are separated. The old tower is a place where pure wizards gather. Their mindset is that magic is the greatest, and only the chosen ones should practice it. On the contrary, the God Tower is a faction trying to cast off the authoritarian mask of magic and combine it with modern science. It may have been hundreds of years ago, but human history has made rapid progress in the last 200 years. Cars appeared instead of carriages, and weapons using gunpowder instead of simple swords were the mainstay. Nevertheless, the existence of wizards and knights was still an axis of the world, but they could not completely reject change either, especially the wizards. Magic and science seem to be the same, but they are different. The old Tower wizards argued that science should be rejected, but the new Tower wizards thought science and magic should be combined, so they acted and created magic engineering by combining magic and science. The birth of magic engineering made the world develop faster. Steamboats, engineering trains, steam golems, flying airships, and all sorts of things were born. And even now new things are continuing to appear in such a turbulent world. The tower was torn apart by the two forces. The confrontation between Altigo and Alyssa shows the relationship between the old and the new, and Roger was a New Age wizard. To be more precise, his mind is that of a New Age wizard, but his magic is old-fashioned. The real magic, which he did not show well to others, was much closer to old-fashioned magic than to New Age magic. However, it was not something to brag about, so Roger nodded and only responded to Alyssa's words. Did I talk too much? Still, this is a banquet for a long-awaited celebration, and Mr. Roger must be tired. No. I'll leave you alone now. I have a lot of people to deal with. Mr. Roger, enjoy yourself today, but with just a little bit of alcohol. You get it, right? Of course. Alyssa disappeared from his sight, fluttering the hem of her black dress as she did when she appeared. Is it finally over? Following a quarrel with Ivan Luke, the wizards of the tower came and bothered him. It was quite a mental exhaustion, but Roger soon got back on track because he came here for a purpose. Ah, Mr. Roger? As Roger approached, Selena, who was with the others, welcomed him. Teacher Selena, are you all right? Yes, the president of that Luke company personally came and apologized. That's a relief. No matter how incompetent his son was, the chairman apologized himself. He may have an ulterior motive, but he is certainly not a fool like his son. Roger glanced back and looked at the faces of the people with Selena. You were talking to other people. Selena had very few friends present in the banquet hall, but besides her was Miss Merilda, who often takes care of her. Oh, nice to meet you. You are the one from the rumors. 3 women and a man opened their eyes in surprise at Roger. They were people he met for the first time, but faces that he passed by at least once. They were the teachers in charge of spirit studies at Theon. There were 4 of them, each taking up 1 seat from the 2nd grade to the 5th grade. Roger greeted them courteously. I am Roger Chelisai, the teacher in charge of the 2nd grade manifestation class. I heard of the new teacher in charge of the 2nd grade. I'm Sethruna, the 2nd-year spirit studies teacher. Sethruna was a woman with short red hair. For a moment, Roger suspected that she might be Esmeralda, the First Order. No, I can't make a decision yet. The other teacher introduced themselves as well. My name is Partanya, and I'm in charge of the 3rd grade. Partanya, who teaches 3rd grade students, was an impressive lady with a great presence. My name is Vierano Dentes, and I'm in charge of the 4th grade. The teacher in charge of the 4th grade was the only man in the spirit school, and he looked rather timid with a small frame. Surprisingly, he was an elf with pointed ears. Is he an elf? There was nothing particularly strange about having multiple subraces in Theon, so an elf in charge of the spirit studies class is nothing special. I'm Angela Anderson. Finally, the 5th grade teacher in charge of the graduating class was a sharp-looking woman wearing glasses. She was strict, but quite beautiful and looked like she was hard to approach. If I narrow down the list, one of those 3 should be Esmeralda. The problem is who the real one among the 3 is. Esmeralda knows about the identity of Roger, so she might show some kind of reaction when they shook hands, but none of them showed any particular reaction towards him. Could it be that it's none of them? Esmeralda's personality is fiery and tricky, and she gets annoyed quickly when things don't go her way. The second-grade teacher Sethruna, it's the most suspicious. Only teachers with experience are appointed for the third grade and higher, and the new teachers are mainly in charge of the first 2 grades, so if the Black Dawn Society wants to plant people, they would most likely be there. Should I get hands to find out about the person named Sethruna? As his worries deepened, he was a little thirsty, and as he was about to call a waiter, he had no choice but to pause for a while because she looked familiar. Renee. A student who attends his class and possesses non-attribute magic, and because she was paying attention to him, she was staying close to Roger. Wearing a black and white waitress suit and holding a silver tray in one hand, Renee also froze when she saw Roger. Chapter 96, Banquet of Flames, 1. Roger was a bit perplexed because he didn't know that Renee would be in a place like this. "Renee, what are you doing here?" That's..." Renee pondered whether or not to say this, but she didn't have anything to hide anyway, so she decided to be honest. "Part-time job? It's part-time job?" "Yes, I heard they're looking for people to serve here, so I got a recommendation from a senior I know. I heard that the pay is good and the job doesn't take long." "Is it a part-time job?" I wondered if it was necessary to entrust it to Theon students, but surprisingly, this kind of thing happened quite often. Leathervelk once had an agreement with Theon. It is said that Theon students are specially hired for various necessary tasks in Leathervelk. The same is true of the bulletin boards that exist in Theon. The purpose of the agreement was to hire Theon students for less difficult work and give them the opportunity to earn the necessary funds. This was also good for Leathervelk, because they could have the opportunity to meet Theon's students and put a face stamp on talented people who would become great wizards in the future, along with a positive image of the city. Even with these banquet halls, it was not uncommon for some students to come as part-time workers. "Besides me, there are several other seniors, so it's okay." Line smiled and replied. According to Henry, this was an easy part-time job and she could earn a lot of money, but she didn't expect that it would be a banquet hall where teachers and important people gather. "Yes, I see. Would you like a drink?" "Yeah." Roger took a glass from Renee's tray and immediately drank it. It was a little unexpected to have Renee in a place like this, but it wasn't really a problem. It was just a little surprising. This wasn't something he needed to worry about, but whenever he sees her, he suddenly remembers what happened in the past. It's even more so when he sees her standing still and looking at him having a drink with sparkling eyes. She has the same appearance as Renee, and he couldn't get her out of his head. "Renee, you..." "What?" Roger, who was suddenly going to say something to Renee, could not finish his words properly. "No, it's nothing. I can't tell her because of that promise. Giving her the book, it's the only thing I could do. Don't overdo it, go home early." All Roger could say was, after all, just some advice. "Oh yes, thank you, I'll be on my way." "Yes." After Renee bowed her head and backed away, Selena, who found her late, approached Roger and asked, "That kid just now was Renee? You know her? I thought she wasn't in your class." "Yes, we got to know each other the other day, but what is Renee doing here?" She said she had a part-time job. Selena clapped her hands. "Aha, that's right. I think I heard that some students who don't get scholarships make money from other jobs. No wonder my assistant was here." "Your assistant?" At the word assistant, Roger remembered how Selena took the students to the fantasy forest for the test. "Who is it?" "It's that kid over there." Selena raised her hand and pointed to one side. There was a girl with dark brown hair and long braids over her shoulder. He couldn't see her face well because she was wearing big glasses, but Roger recognized her immediately. "Her name is Joanna Lovett, a freshman who entered Theon, and I took her as an assistant because she has a deep knowledge of spirituality." "I see. Joanna Lovett." It was his first time taking her name because she was not a student taking his class. Roger stared carefully at the figure. She stood still with a tray that had now been emptied, looking like the other students who were working here. Come to think of it, among the people on the scene at the time, I didn't pay much attention to the assistants. Esmeralda wields a high-level spirit of fire, so that was the reason why he thought she would be at least a teacher. With Esmeralda's real identity unknown, Joanna Love could not escape from the suspects list. Just as I thought so, Joanna Lovett, who was standing still, began to move. What is she trying to do? Roger watched her movements closely. She was now glancing around secretively so that no one else would notice her, but Roger could tell. Joanna moved cautiously, placing a silver tray on the table at the center of the banquet hall. Where are you going? After she put her tray down, she went back to her place and stood still. Was she just trying to put an empty tray away? Maybe I've become too sensitive. Roger looked away from Joanna Lovett and glanced over the banquet hall, and he could hear people talking. Did you hear the news this time? What do you mean? They've been saying that the back alley vagrants have been acting extraordinarily lately. You mean the low class? That's what happens all the time. If it was the same, I would have lost interest, but this time it's a little unusual. What is so unusual? The middle-aged man who opened his mouth nodded and cleared his throat. Would you believe me if I say they're doing business? Ha 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 ha. The laughter was indistinct because everyone was talking, but Roger, who was listening, certainly heard it. It was obviously a laugh. Huh. The lowlife's doing business. Did you see it wrong? I didn't see it either. I just heard the rumors, but I don't think it's just false rumors. It's not a false rumor. I don't know what's been going on in the back alley recently, but they said the guys who were fighting every day are now holding hands. He said everything he knew. They cleaned up the slums and started using a building as an office. People said they even saw a large amount of fabric going into it. Huh, what the hell are they doing? I heard they're trying to get into the clothing business, but they don't have a chance. Ha ha ha. That's right. What can the lower class do since the luxury clothing stores are holding the market as tightly as they are now? Overhearing this, Roger realized that what he had ordered was going well. You're moving faster than I thought. Since people noticed what's happening, it must have been quite a while since you started moving in earnest. They tried to pretend not to, but they were desperate, and the strategy that Roger showed them was more than effective and a little overkill. People who used to roll in the dark, dirty mud found hope. They who lived their entire lives down there realized that they might be able to go up, so how can they stay still? And that strong desire will be a huge wave that no one can stop. No matter what the lower class do, it'll be from there. That's right. What about the money they need for business? Will the back alley prostitutes, beggars, and bastards come together change anything? It's amazing that there's someone who's funded them. I can't even borrow money because my credit rating is low. Isn't it because the royal family is all for the common people these days? So the lower ones are climbing up. It's ridiculous. They're just going to eat the piece of bread that rolls down from the top and are going to enjoy some kind of wealth. Don't be so angry. Still, we don't have to step up and trample on them, do we? What can they do? They'll just destroy themselves. Let's have wine while watching the scene. Ha 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 ha. Eventually, they couldn't hold back and burst into laughter among themselves. You fools. Roger shook his head. They won't be able to laugh in the future. They're just individuals who can't read the tide of the times. The human world is so small, and on the contrary, the world is so huge. More than what we see, what we know by knowledge, and what exists on a map. From their point of view, the immeasurably huge world inevitably seems to stand still, but that doesn't mean the world has stopped. The world is moving endlessly toward the future. History proves it. Nothing seems to have happened in a day or two, but a surprisingly big change will happen in a year and two since the world is changing in every moment. You'll find out soon. After thinking that far, Roger stumbled in his seat without realizing it. Teacher Roger, are you okay? It's nothing. The floor is a little slippery. Selina asked anxiously. Roger responded lightly, but couldn't come to his senses because of the ringing sound in his head. Are you all right, I'm going to get some fresh air. The words around him began to be eaten up by the noise. Roger cleared his breath and left immediately. Selina looked worried, but she didn't follow him when he refused. He came out on the balcony. There was no one here because the banquet was in full swing. Woo! Roger held on to the marble railing with his hands. The noise, which was not heard properly, began to take on the shape of a clear language, accepting, let's. You're chosen. Shut up. Roger ignored the voice and took out his pills. Unlike the usual 2 or 3 pills, he put as many as he could in his mouth this time. At the same time, his voice, which had become increasingly distinct, began to be crushed again, as if trapped behind a fog. Soon the noise gradually decreased and disappeared like an echo leaving the mountain. Woo! Rudger sighed with relief and stared at the night view of Leathervelk over the railing on the balcony. The city, where light flowed everywhere, was shining brilliantly in the dark, and Rudger felt the night breeze over his body. He closed his eyes for a moment and thought about what he should do in the future, what he can do, and soon the answer was clear in his mind. Rudger Chelisai, Chris Benimor, wandering around to take a break, unwittingly hid behind a wall when he saw Rudger Chelisai standing alone on a balcony. "What are you doing here alone?" It was 30 minutes ago that he defeated the wizard hired by Luke in front of everyone. Chris Benimor had also watched the duel. He had hoped Rudger would be brutally defeated there, but the reality was not the same as his wishes. Rudger knocked down his opponent with overwhelming force in front of everyone. The speed of his casting was instantaneous, and Chris realized it was the source code magic. He's a formidable man. As he thought so, he struggled to ignore the growing sense of inferiority he had in his heart. By now, you should have been surrounded by people and hearing all kinds of praises. But he was alone on the balcony. "You're eating something." The man, who was usually expressionless and emotionless, was now so exhausted that he was unrecognizable. He took something out of his arms and began to pour it into his mouth. Is it medicine? Is it what he usually eats? Does he have a chronic disease? Chris Benimor reached a conclusion at this moment. Too much medicine, it's harmful to the body, but there's only one kind of medicine that isn't. A drug that restores mana. Although there are very few magic recovery drugs in the form of pills, it cannot be said that there are none. Are you eating them because you are suffering from a lack of magical power? If yes, why? Chris' head was spinning. It's because of the duel a little while ago. Rudger knocked down his opponent using a series of colorful magic in front of everyone. The magic power was not great, and it was all second and third tier magic, but Chris could tell that Rudger was now struggling with a lack of mana. Chris Benimor was the first to notice the weakness of Rudger. "I see. That's why he ended the magic duel quickly." The hidden secret of Rudger Chelisai, unknown to others, was that the amount of magical power he possesses is absurdly low. So far, you must have been regularly taking a magic pill to not get caught. Chris Benimor couldn't help but smile since he found Rudger's weakness that no one knew about. The magic festival is about to take place. I can do it there. Chris Benimor ran away before he fully recovered, fearing that he might be caught by Rudger. Is it over? The cause was that he used too much magic during the magic duel a while ago. At first, he thought it was okay, but he didn't notice that he was running out of magic because he took his time talking to other people. I have become too lax. He used to live with a pill in his mouth like a habit, but he forgot even that. There were so many other things to care about, but it seemed necessary to reflect on himself a little. At least I managed to narrow down the list of suspects, and I'm one step closer to discovering Esmeralda's identity. When he came back to the banquet hall thinking that screams erupted from everywhere. "Ah, a monster, a monster!" everyone shouted in a tearful voice. Rudger, who had just returned to the banquet hall, could also see that in the center of the banquet hall, the figure of a giant of blazing fire appeared on the table. It's Esmeralda. Rudger realized that the Black Dawn Society First Order Esmeralda summoned the spirit. Chapter 97, Banquet of Flames 2. The sudden appearance of the fire giant turned the banquet hall into a crucible of chaos in an instant. Well, what the hell is that? Arg, run! People were startled and scattered around but ended up colliding with each other. Most of the people who gathered here were incompetent. As a result, they failed to maintain their reason in the sudden situation and panicked. The giant opened his mouth when he saw them. When the mouth full of sharp fangs like that of an animal opened, what was seen inside was a bright red wiggling flame like the one on the bottom of hell. People watching the scene turned pale, and they felt instinctively what the giant was going to do. A flame that was so hot that their skin burned even if they were far away, for it was spewed out from the center of the banquet hall. But at that moment, the guards moved. since it is a banquet hall where important people gather. All the guards were knight in case something happened. The guards in black suits pulled out the sword worn on their waist and swung it right away. Even if the number of guards is not large, considering that one knight is equal to several dozen or more mercenaries, the security of this banquet hall was not low. The first sword wielded by the guard hit the flame. The aura contained in the sword cut through the flames and deflected it in another direction. A long stream of fire turned and engulfed the ceiling of the banquet hall. The fire spread like concentric circles on the ceiling and burned up all the chandeliers hanging in the air. The chandelier, unable to withstand the heat of the fire, melted and fell to the ground. "Avoid it! Run away!" Screams resounded everywhere. The panicked people bumped into each other and fell, but others stepped on them and kept running. The banquet hall was instantly filled with chaos, reminiscent of a battlefield. It was then that Theon's teachers acted. "This way. Slowly. Move calmly." Spirits appeared everywhere to block or remove debris falling from the sky. The spirit of the wind helped those who fell, and the spirit of water extinguished the flames on the ceiling. Other wizards didn't sit still either, as magic erupted from everywhere and was shot at the fire giant, but the fire giant blocked the magic with his body. "We must defeat that monster. Where the hell did it come from? Just buy some time. People's evacuation comes first." Roger stared at the figure of the fire giant. It's his first time seeing it, but that energy definitely looked familiar. It was clear that it was the advanced-level spirit of fire he encountered at that time. Advanced? No, it's stronger than that. At that time, he felt that it was at least an advanced-level spirit, but now that he sees it, its majesty is quite extraordinary. At this level, it seems close to a supreme-level spirit that has an extremely low probability to be born from the essence of nature. The supreme level is the level directly below the elemental lords that are representing the attribute of the elements. To think she called a guy like that. On the continent, spirits are graded from the lowest to the highest. Among them, the advanced-level spirits belong to the 4th and 5th ranks compared to wizards, and the supreme-level spirits are close to the 6th rank. And on top of that was the elemental lord. The giant of fire, who just broke into the banquet hall, is a supreme-level spirit, which can be said to be just below the elemental lords. Since it was such a powerful existence, the attack magic used on the spot was not able to deal it a proper blow. Esmeralda. Where is she? Roger rolled his eyes. The most suspicious person was a girl named Joanna Lovett, whom Selena had been talking about. However, she has not been seen since the fire giant appeared. He needed to find her. As soon as he thought so, the giant of fire, which had been under attack, moved again. The fire from the ceiling, which had not been extinguished, stretched down as if responding to the cry of the giant. It felt more like a thick liquid with high viscosity rather than a fire. As it fell, the guards moved in haste. "Don't let the guests get hurt. Cut it down or get rid of it." "Do as you please." One of the guards who shouted like that immediately swung his sword and cut the falling drops of fire. What? The thick flame he had cut with his sword was not properly cut, but rather stuck to his sword. If that was all, it wouldn't have been an issue. However, the flame attached to the blade spread to the body of the guard in an instant. Arg! The guard, who hit the falling drops of fire, was caught in flames in an instant and rolled on the floor. Even with the superior physical ability of a knight, he had no power at this moment. The power of fire possessed by the supreme spirits is different from ordinary fires and has an extremely high temperature. The faces of the other guards who saw the scene turned white. "Everyone, be careful. You must not touch it. If it attaches to your sword, throw it away, otherwise you will die." Maybe it was because the call was a little late, but 3 more guards were burned to death after the first victim. Roger frowned at the sight. Is it because the spirit used the element? It's not like a normal fire, but more like magma. For a fire, the shape is clear, and even though it is small in size, its calorific value is unimaginably high. In fact, if one looked closely at the giant of fire, there were black spots all over its body. It was literally the embodiment of living magma. I heard that spirits usually show the mystery and magnificence of nature. It is said that the form of the spirit is not fixed, but there are some rules. Basically, a spirit takes the form of an animal, plant, or other deformed structures. It is the same as the spirit level increases. The spirit's rank changes depending on how much nature's energy it holds. The higher the rank, the stronger the energy of Mother Nature, and the more it is, the more it becomes something other than the form of a living being. Long ago, while wandering the world with his master, Rudger once witnessed the elemental lord of water. The appearance he saw at that time was quite different from what people assumed and talked about. It looked like a mixture of oriental dragons and giant whales. The being that was bigger than an island was moving above the sea level, scattering countless white manes like a huge sea fog behind its back. Because it literally embraced the wonders of nature, but the fire giant in front of him did not do that. It was close to being tailored to human senses. A supreme-level spirit that has human form with arms crossed. Although it is large, it looks more like a bizarre lump of fat rather than muscles. The black spots that appeared all over its body made the appearance of the fire spirit even more ghastly, a twisted spirit. That was the best way to describe it, and as Rudger stared at the spirit, he noticed something strange. It has no lower body. Compared to the giant's peculiarly enlarged upper body, the lower body was almost invisible. Probably because he didn't have a lower body, and I knew right away that it was because it wasn't summoned properly. She used a medium. There are two ways to make a spirit manifest when summoning a spirit. The first is to summon a spirit through the contractor's magic. However, if this method was used, magicians sensitive to magic could immediately recognize the identity of the summoner. In that case, the second method is used. That is, using a medium to summon a spirit. It depends on the type of medium, but a top-tier spirit won't be summoned properly unless a very expensive ore is used. But the advantage of using a medium is that the summoner won't be discovered. Esmeralda's choice was the second method, and she used a medium to summon the fire spirit. The silver tray on the table. It was obviously the tray that Joanna Lovett had secretly brought in the middle of the banquet hall. Even if it was incomplete, it was not a common tray if it had enough power to summon a supreme-level spirit. It's fortunate that Esmeralda has been identified, but the situation was not been quite favorable for Rudger either, since he can't go after Joanna until the spirit is taken care of. Now it's not the time. Rudger looked around. The guards were working hard to restrain the giant, and some wizards are also hitting him with water and ice magic. In the chaotic situation, Rudger found a person who had not yet been evacuated. His expression hardened quickly. What's going on? Renee opened her closed eyes. She remembered walking around and serving people until a while ago, but she couldn't remember anything clearly after that. The last sight she had seen was something exploding in front of her. Did she faint? Raising her upper body by gripping her dizzy head, she finally realized what had happened at the banquet hall. What? The center of a banquet hall, the place where the party was supposed to be in full swing, was a complete mess, and a fire giant was wreaking havoc. A spirit? Is that a spirit? A giant of her great stature was fighting against the guards and magic teachers in her banquet hall. It was so powerful that she couldn't guess its level. It's not the time for this. I have to run. As Renee tried to move her body, she felt a burning pain in her ankle and frowned. My legs. She had a scar on her ankle. The wound wasn't deep, but she couldn't move. I have to crawl and run. At that moment, the fire giant scattered flames around. It must have intended to get rid of all the flies that bothered him at once. Ah. Renee saw the scene and realized that she couldn't avoid the fireballs that have the power to turn a person into ashes. Renee closed his eyes tightly and waited for death, but at that moment, she had a feeling that something had covered her body and pulled her strongly somewhere. Huh, doesn't it hurt? Renee carefully opened her closed eyes and saw Rudger looking down at her. Renee, Mr. Rudger. Are you okay? Why is he here now? No, more than that, did he save her? Renee was desperately rolling her head that didn't work well and realized what was going on. Rudger saved her life. Sir. Stay still. Renee struggled with her face dyed red, but Rudger remained motionless. He held Renee in his arms, withdrew to a safe place, and immediately checked her legs. The wound is not deep. I have a recovery pill, so wait. Seeing Roger immediately taking out the medicine bottle from his arms, Renee felt a strange feeling. What is it? Obviously, Mr. Roger and her had little contact. To be honest, she didn't have much to do with him. But at this moment, Roger saved her from a crisis and was even treating her. It occurred to her that she had seen this sight somewhere. Teacher. What's wrong? Renee didn't know why she's saying this, but she really wanted to ask. Didn't we meet before? Chapter 98, Banquet of Flames 3. At Renee's question, Roger trembled for a moment, but it was only for an instant, and Renee didn't see it. Roger replied calmly. What are you talking about? Did you see anything? What? Oh no, I suddenly felt that way. That's enough nonsense. The treatment is over. Oh. Renee's injured leg immediately recovered thanks to the medicine. Renee, leave. It's dangerous here. What about you? I will do what I have to do here as a teacher. You're the only one left, so go ahead. Renee was about to say something, but she stopped. Because she couldn't ask Roger all the questions she had in a dire situation like now. Nevertheless, what is this feeling? She was clamoring in her head to ask Roger the questions as soon as possible. No, I can't disturb Mr. Roger now. Renee tried to shake off her lingering feelings of regret and bowed to Roger. Thank you for saving me. Then she ran out in the direction pointed by Roger. Roger turned to the banquet hall after confirming that Renee had completely disappeared out of his sight. As the fire giant began to move, wizards and guards were being pushed helplessly. Still, the number of deaths did not increase due to ignorance as before, but it was only a matter of time now. Roger checked his physical condition. This noisy banquet is going to end now. Countless spells flew through the air targeting the supreme-level spirit, the main culprit for the current situation. Eventually, magic collides with the spirit of fire, explodes, and scatters powerful shock waves around it. We got it. As soon as a wizard's murmur, which had been sweating due to excessive mana consumption, ended, the fire giant appeared from the foggy smoke, and he looked even more ferocious than before. Get out of the way. At that moment, Theon's spirit studies teacher stepped forward. Among them, Angela Anderson, who is in charge of 5th grade classes, took the lead. Bite it! Ventiswalp? Ventiswalp, a supreme-level spirit of the wind who looked like a giant wolf with a fluttering white mane, jumped at the giant of fire at the order of the contractor and bit his neck. QO. The fire giant, who did not even move even after being attacked by magic, responded for the first time. The giant of fire, who was screaming in pain, clenched his right fist and tried to swing it toward the wolf hanging from his upper body. You can't do that. It was Vierano Dentes, the 4th grade spirit studies teacher and an elf, who spoke. Behind his back was a tiny salamander made of pure water swimming around. Vierano pointed his hand at the giant of fire, and the spirit of water moved. He rolled his little body in a circle and soon shot out like a shell. Boom! It collided with the fist of the fire giant, which had just been aiming at Ventiswalp. No one on the scene thought that the little lizard could stop the giant's attack, but the result of the crash was surprising. The fire giant's right fist turned black after the fire was extinguished under his elbow. Compared to Ventiswalp, the supreme-level spirit of the wind, it was shabby in size, but its power was that of a supreme-level spirit, and since the opponent was a fire spirit, it had the advantage. Well done. With this, we can win. Some people watching the situation from behind cheered, but Uncillane's contractor, Vierano, frowned secretly. It was a powerful attack, but it didn't completely defeat him. Others don't know, but he did. In particular, Uncillane, who signed a contract with him, was not maintaining its form properly due to the collision just now. Even though it only bounced the giant fist, Uncillane was significantly pushed back. Isn't it possible to deal with a supreme spirit using a supreme spirit? The supreme spirit of fire that appeared in the center of the banquet hall was unlike ordinary spirits, and it also took the form of a human being. If the president was here, the situation would have been different. The president left the banquet a little while ago, and the spirit of fire appeared after that, so the president couldn't come to help. Maybe the person behind this attack now may have been aiming for the president's absence. Even so, there are a number of Theon's teachers here, knowing that they still started the attack. Is it because they were confident in their power? Who the hell summoned a supreme-level fire spirit here? A person of that level shouldn't be a terrorist, but his thoughts didn't last long. The supreme spirit of fire, which had slowed down for a while, began to move. The fist of his right hand, which had been extinguished, burned again. Seeing that he wasn't affected by Unsillane hit, Vierano made a bold decision. "Teacher Angela, have Ventuswalp step back." "All right." Angela heard Vierano's words, and Ventuswalp immediately stepped back. Soon after, a scorching heat spread around the fire giant's body. Had she been too late to withdraw Ventuswalp, the spirit would have been engulfed by the heat. Teacher Angela murmured in a faint tone. "That's the power of a supreme spirit. We can't take it down, but we can buy time if we work together. In a little while, Leathervelk's police will move after hearing the news, the knights of the city that exist above them, to be exact. If they step forward, it will be easier to defeat the fire giant. But he's really hot right now. Even if we work together to defend ourselves, how long will we last?" Even though he was prepared for the after-effects of this, he didn't know if he would have to squeeze out all his strength. The moment he was determined to do so and wanted to convey his opinion to others, Vierano noticed a black shadow rising above the fire giant's head. "What? What is that?" It was the same with other guards and wizards. A man was looking down at the giant of fire, floating high enough to cling to the ceiling while holding a staff. Rudger Chelisai, the most frequently mentioned name in Theon recently. But why now? He was fully aware of his skills after seeing the magic duel at the beginning of the banquet, but this is a different case. The opponent is a supreme spirit of fire. No matter how powerful Rudger Chelisai is, he can't deal with that. You got caught. What Vierano was worried about happened. The fire giant discovered the existence of Rudger. The two eyes that contain the essence of hot fire were raised and faced Rudger. Rudger stared silently at the ugly monster. Did you not like that look? The fire giant contorted his face and clenched his fists. At that moment, Rudger's magic appeared. Third-tier magic combined with the source code was unfolded at a swift speed, appearing around him one by one. Around Rudger, like countless clock hands, spears made of each element appeared. However, they were not only small in number, but also had insufficient power against the enemy in front of him. Then, the hand holding the staff pointed at the fire giant, and at the same time the magic moved. That's not going to work. All the teachers watching the scene had the same thoughts. The fire giant will receive Rudger's attack with its body and block them. The scene in everyone's head was all the same, but... Kua! The giant of the fire suddenly screamed and curled up. It was like trying to protect something from Rudger's magic. Rudger's magic struck the fire giant in the back, and even those watching were embarrassed by the sudden action of the giant. What's wrong? Why is it moving like that? Vierano recalled one thing he had overlooked. Medium. Did he aim for that? What, Mr. Vierano? Are you talking about the medium for spirits? Vierano nodded at Angela's question. After he became convinced, he began to see things he had not seen. Why has such a huge spirit suddenly appeared in the center of the banquet hall? Because it was summoned using the highest quality medium. Most of the spirits are summoned only with the contractor's magic, so he forgot about the other case. Now, Mr. Rudger is directly targeting the medium from which that spirit was summoned. So the spirit responded to it and crouched down. If it is a medium, is there a problem? Angela answered Partanya's question with a stiff face. It's a big problem. The spirit of fire is protecting it with his body, so it would be impossible to even pierce it without a high amount of firepower. She said because all the attacks that Rudger threw were blocked by the fire giant's body and disappeared. No matter how much magic he used, he will not be able to penetrate the fire giant and eliminate the medium inside. Rudger also felt the same way. I don't have enough power, but to be honest, it would be difficult to use other magic here. It had been a while since he had almost exhausted himself from consuming too much mana. If he consumes a large amount of magical power here, he will not be able to recover it even with medicine for a while. Besides, there were too many eyes to see around. If he uses his real magic here, the aftermath will be so huge that it can't be compared to when he showed the source code. Then, it can be used with less magical power, and it was enough to use the magic that could most effectively overcome the current situation. Roger immediately stopped his floating magic and descended to the ground. He stood in front of the crouching fire giant who raised his head and stared at Roger. "The festival ends here," Roger said in a low voice that only the fire giant could hear, and activated his magic, which was a little slower since he didn't use source code, but as soon as it was completed, the fire giant rattled, perhaps feeling something strange. The metal tray, the medium of summoning, that he hid under his bloated upper body broke in half with a sudden bang. No matter how much you surround it, you can't fully protect it. His attack went through space and reached the target. It was the coordinate designation magic. The magic that Roger used was not a big deal, but the situation was different since he destroyed the summoning medium of the fire giant. The fire giant opened his eyes in disbelief, but now that the medium of summoning disappeared, there was nothing he could do. The heat so strong that it melted everything around it gradually disappeared, and the fire giant stared at Roger as if to kill him, and his mouth opened wide. Was it going to breathe fire in as a last effort? When everyone thought that, what came out of the spirit's mouth was completely unexpected. "Human, hateful scum. The will of the spirits can be said to be part of Mother Nature, so everyone was surprised that it could speak. I'm going to burn them all." There was no change in Roger's expression in the face of the incredible sight of the spirit speaking the words of hatred. "Try it." He even provoked the spirit. The fire giant was reverse-summoned without doing anything else. Countless sparks scattered in the air, and fire giant disappeared as if it had melted away like a flame that burns without leaving ashes. Oh my God. The people who were watching the scene couldn't help but be astonished. The supreme spirit of fire that could not be defeated even by countless wizards and knights was subdued by Roger Chelisai alone. Chapter 99. Source of Sounds 1. The fire giant had completely disappeared, and the case was quickly closed. The wounded were treated and all healthy people were sent home, but the outside was cluttered with citizens who flocked to see what was going on. Rumors of a fire giant appearing at the banquet hall have spread widely. Reporters flocked to try to figure out what was going on, and the police stopped them with their bodies. "Are all the students safe?" "Oh, Mr. Roger." In the temporary clinic that was made to treat the injured Selena and Merilda, who were waiting nearby, brightened their faces when they saw Roger approaching. "Mr. Roger, as expected, you're safe?" "Yes, are you two all right?" Merilda replied, waving her hand. "We're fine. I only helped students and guests evacuate." "I see. Where are all the students?" "I sent them all back. They were just doing part-time work at the banquet, so there was no need to have them stay, but why are you asking?" "I just wanted to make sure everyone is all right." If he persists in asking about Joanna Lovett's whereabouts here, they'll get suspicious, so Roger made up an excuse. Merilda smiled gently as if Roger's answer was unexpected. "Mr. Roger is really interesting, too. When I first saw you, you looked like you wouldn't bleed even if I poked you, but you worried a lot about the students. I guess you care a lot about them." "I hear that a lot." Roger looked around and saw that the injured were taken to hospitals, and the remaining people were cleaning up the scene. Some people were talking to the police about how the incident happened. The incident was clearly defined as a terrorist attack, causing 12 deaths and about 80 injuries. And considering that most of the casualties are people with considerable status in society, the damage could be said to be even greater. If Esmeralda was aiming for this, I'd say she was half successful. While the president was away, she used a summoning medium to summon a supreme spirit of fire. She should have had the intention to kill everyone around using the spirit. Fortunately, the victims were few because of the strong resistance of the guards and wizards. Although the incident wasn't big, it wasn't without damage. The fire spirit might have been summoned through a medium, but it was comparable to a 6th-rank wizard. The impact of this incident was beyond description, because it imprinted in people's minds that no matter how high the security, attacks will happen somehow. "Mr. Roger." Then someone approached Roger and called his name. It was Vierano Dentes. one of the wizards who fought against the giant of fire until the end at the scene. The elf teacher played a big role with Angela until Roger came forward. "Yes, may I help you? Can I talk to you for a moment?" "It's possible, but—" Roger slurred, and the quick-witted Merilda immediately grabbed Selina's arm and slipped away. "Miss Merilda?" "Selina, let's go this way." When the two were left alone, Vierano bowed to Roger. "Thank you. You helped us end the situation before there were any more victims." "I just did what I had to do." Roger got to know the elf teacher a little better. Although at first glance he seemed a little soft, he was the one who played the biggest role in fighting the supreme spirit of fire. In particular, as the fourth-grade teacher, he seemed much better at dealing with spirits than Angela, the fifth-grade teacher. In terms of skills, he is superior to Angela Anderson. But is he deliberately staying as the fourth-grade teacher because he feels burdened by such a position? Elves are a long-lived species, so they are actually older than their outward appearance. He had the skills, but he was not in charge of the fifth, so he most likely refused to take the position. "So you came to me to say thank you?" "That's true, but I have one question." "What is it?" "You know how strong that fire spirit was, right?" Roger nodded his head. He knew the power of a supreme fire spirit without fighting it. Although the medium could not properly handle the power of the spirit, only his upper body came out and his essence was a little twisted, but his power was the real deal. "How did you do it?" At Vierano's sudden question, Roger asked back with a wistful smile. "What do you mean?" "You knew the spirit was summoned through a medium, right?" "Yes. To be precise, I found out later." Roger explained to Vierano how he knew that the fire spirit was summoned through a medium. The lower body didn't come out properly. Perhaps the spirit's power was so strong that it couldn't be summoned properly through the medium. It was a coincidence that I realized it. "I see. But you're still amazing." Even if it was a coincidence, Mr. Roger noticed the weakness at a glance. Whoever was there would have known right away. "I don't think it's because I'm special." "No. If it were me, I wouldn't have noticed right away as you had seen it." Vierano laughed bitterly as if he realized his lack of ability in the incident. "I'm an elite in spirit science, but because this was so unexpected, I couldn't realize it in time." Roger didn't bother to blame him. In the first place, it is very rare for someone to use a medium to summon spirits, so it was an unexpected situation. Spirits are nature's beings, and signing contracts with them and summoning them is the power of Mother Nature and the energy of the contractor. On the contrary, in the case of a medium, it is said that most spirits hate it because it is an artificial summon. In particular, the higher the rank, the stronger their pride. So spirits reject summons through mediums even more. It is not a forced contract between contractor and spirit, but an equal contract with each other that can never be done. I overlooked it because I thought it was too obvious. I didn't think there was someone who could summon a supreme spirit through a medium. The opponent may have so much power. There's definitely that, but I think the fact that the spirit was different from the ordinary spirits played a part. Roger felt that it was different from ordinary spirits. I've never heard of a spirit that hates humans. Isn't that the case with ordinary spirits? The spirits are the image of the energy of nature itself, and nature energy is the source of this world. I know. Spirits are part of nature, and Mother Nature doesn't think about the species that exist inside her. Roger suddenly remembered a lesson he had learned in a previous life. The pursuit of the heavens and the earth and all things. It comes from Laozi moral scriptures. People want to influence heaven's will, but heaven doesn't have a will. All things are just beings that live in harmony with nature like grass or dogs. Even if something goes wrong and something terrible happens, nature does not become a particularly frightening thing. Even if there's a typhoon, a flood, a drought, and countless beings die, nature, it's just nature, and so are the spirits. But the fire spirit was different. Roger could clearly sense his hatred for humans. I didn't think there would be such a spirit in the world. It hates humans and doesn't care about being summoned through a medium, and even the fact that there is a person who made a contract with such a supreme spirit. That's pretty serious. Although it's too late to understand the situation, Mr. Roger did his best, especially the magic you used at the end. Vierano immediately noticed what magic Roger used. It must have transcended space, right? You don't have to be too sensitive about it. Because I'm an elf and I've seen as many things as I've lived for a long time. So what I saw is correct, right? You're right. It was a coordinate designation magic, a method of fixing magic in a specific space and manifesting it in that place. Setting the coordinates, was that possible? It's hard at first, but it's easy once you get used to it. Vierano didn't quite believe what he said. Others might not understand it, but he was an elf. Although he may look like a small boy in his mid-teens, he has lived more than a century. Even if his main interest was spirit science, he could confidently say that his knowledge of magic was second to none, so he knew that the coordinate designation magic that Roger used was not ordinary magic. There's no way it can be done that easily. Recognizing everything in the world as coordinates and designating a formula there can't be easy. If anyone can do it, it's either because they were born with an excessive perception of space compared to others, or the brain's limiter is completely off. The average person would think it was the former, but Vierano could not dispel his doubts. He thought that Roger might belong to the second category. Can a person with good brains designate space coordinates leisurely in such an urgent situation? Besides, he invented an extraordinary magic called source code. Vierano asked, slightly concerned. Are you okay? When you use magic, do you feel worse than usual? Roger, who was trying to ask back what it meant, realized that Vierano's expression was very serious. This may be an old man's nosiness, but please keep it in mind. There's a story that I heard when I was very young. What are you talking about? There are some people who think too much compared to others. Vierano took a breath and spoke again. They're often called geniuses, but they're a little bit different from real geniuses. Geniuses break through their specialized abilities within a given framework, but they are completely different. What's the difference? There's no given framework. Roger lost his words for a moment and then opened his mouth. That's a good thing. If you don't have a frame, you don't have limits. You might think you're blessed in a way, but you're not. People don't know that the frame is, in fact, a strong barrier protecting them from the outside. The moment the word outside came out, Roger clenched his fist unconsciously, but Vierano didn't realize the strangeness of Roger. As if preoccupied with his explanation, he asked, staring at Roger with a serious gaze. I'm asking just in case. Mr. Roger, do you sometimes hear strange sounds? Chapter 100. Source of Sound 2. Can you hear anything? Vierano, who asked that, seemed to have some kind of certainty, but Roger shook his head and denied it. It didn't happen. Is that so? Yes, Mr. Vierano's comments are very interesting, but unfortunately they have nothing to do with me. However, it is a little strange that there are people who do not have standards in their talents and thinking. Do you know anything more? I don't know because I've come across it in an old literature. That's all I heard about when I was a kid. If that's what Mr. Vierano, an elf, says, I think it's almost a legend for humans. At Roger's words, Vierano smirked. Yeah, maybe. Vierano was disappointed that the man in front of didn't have a framework, but he somehow expected that. If you're an ordinary person, you'll never be able to endure it. People will not know since they live less than 100 years, and tried to record a lot of history. But in many cases, not all the facts that actually happened are recorded. At most, 70% of them are. 30% is so forgotten by humans, but the elves are different. They have a lifespan over 10 times that of humans, and they are like observers of history. Although their numbers are extremely small and were reduced even more in the wars up until 50 years ago, they still remember it all. There are beings far beyond human cognition in the world. Huge spirits that exist in Mother Nature, higher races far superior to humans, and even existences like monsters and demons that disappeared beyond the barrier of shadows in the giant Spine Mountains. And lastly, looking down at the world, God. Therefore, humans without a framework are quickly destroyed. Their vessels are so small that they dare not contain all the water of higher beings' interest. A talented man may have a bigger bowl, but all he can do is hang in there a little longer. But Mr. Roger is fine. I didn't feel anything strange before, and I don't feel anything now. I guess he's not the latter case. He was a little disappointed, but was relieved because he liked this human teacher in front of him. As soon as he thought so, Rudger opened his mouth and asked a question. "I have a question." "Yes, go ahead." "You said that people who don't have a frame hear voices of being outside." "Yes, that's right, although it might be a false rumor." "If it's true, then there's more than that." "More than that." Vierano stroked his chin and groped his memory but shook his head immediately. "No. As far as I know, there are only cases where people heard voices." "Is that so?" "There may be more, but the average person wouldn't have endured that much to make it there." "If they endured it, what do you think will happen?" "Well, I've never heard of that, but if they really get through it, there might be a next step, just like how symptoms get worse." Vierano lifted his index finger. "I think the next step after hearing voices is seeing things." "You mean visions?" "Yes, but it's just a hypothesis. There's no way there's such a person in the first place. If it was, they'd be crazy. Wouldn't anyone be crazy if they had to see things they didn't want to see all the time? Even long-lived species, especially nature-friendly elves, would have a hard time bearing it, let alone humans. And this is just in case, but if there's another one, I think it's probably this." "What is it?" "If you can hear the voice and see it with your eyes, there's more to it than that." Vierano said that it wasn't a big deal and it wouldn't happen anyway. You can have direct contact. And added one more word. God. Vierano left to explain the details of the incident. It was in the midst of his busy schedule that he had come to say thanks to Rudger. Rudger watched his back for a while before moving. Is it contact with God? Vierano's hypothesis was interesting. No, beyond interesting, Rudger was deeply impressed. Because it's all true, as expected of an elf who lived for a long time. Narrowing the truth all the way here with a story he read a long time ago, but I'm not going to tell you anyway. His constitution was not something that could be easily talked about. That's why he's trying to suppress it with his own magic, but this wasn't important now. Joanna Lovett. "No, Esmeralda, First Order of the Black Dawn Society. What should I do with her?" Rudger contemplated a lot while talking to Vierano. Should he hint at the real culprit of the Spirit of Fire terrorist attack? If he does that, he can clean up one of the most intrusive First Orders, but he will also be suspected if Esmeralda were to be identified. She, who has not been active until now, is identified as the culprit the moment she moves for the first time. If that happened, Black Dawn might start an investigation, and that would be a disaster for Rudger. If I make assumptions without proof, things will be troublesome. It was clear from the circumstances that Joanna Lovett was Esmeralda. However, her opponent is a contractor who wields the highest level of fire spirits. The power of the supreme spirits is close to that of the 6th rank. In particular, the fire spirit may be even more dangerous because it is so different from normal spirits. It will not be easy to overpower such an opponent without considerable force. To do that, the president must step in, but when that happens, it will become difficult to hide the truth. In other words, Rudger's immediate income was that he discovered Esmeralda's identity, but he couldn't decide what to do with it yet. Is it better to pretend that I don't know? He had no choice but to, since Esmeralda would have noticed that Rudger had come forward and cleaned up the scene. Unless she's a fool, she won't argue why he interrupted her. Rudger also went out when he thought it was appropriate. He came to a conclusion immediately. I can't touch her for now. If Esmeralda's identity is revealed immediately after the incident has just begun, the Black Dawn will suspect a traitor. He's doing it for his safety, but if he touches Esmeralda, he would be in more danger, so he had to wait and see, when she acts next time and shows her tail, at least a little. At that time, he will use Theon power to secretly reveal her true identity, so I'm waiting. Patience was one of his greatest weapons. The next morning, the fire spirit terror incident was featured on the front page of the newspaper. Terrorists attacked the banquet hall. Who is the culprit? The provocative title, which was largely written in black, naturally caught the eye. I sat at an outdoor table in a secluded cafe and opened the newspaper. Well, it caused a riot, but it would be rather strange if it's not known. Leathervelk expressed its regret for this incident and threatened to find the culprit, but Rudger didn't think they could do anything. If they could catch the Black Dawn Society, they would have done it long ago. There are all sorts of conspiracy theories regarding the culprit's identity. starting with lunatic terrorists. The opinion that the perpetrator of the terrorist attack was the work of the Liberation Army was dominant. In particular, considering that the majority of the victims who died this time are high-ranking members of society, it was inevitable that people would think it was the Liberation Army. They didn't do it, but took the blame. Rudger felt that it was a bit silly, but he didn't like the Liberation Army anyway. To put it bluntly, he was closer to hating the Liberation Army. Because of them, I am suffering now. My teeth are still gnashing at the thought of that time. If they hadn't stormed the magic train he was on, his hidden face wouldn't have been destroyed, and he wouldn't have been forced into Theon Academy. But what can he do? It already happened. Now all that remained for Rudger was to do his best in the current situation. On the next page of the newspaper, there was an article written in small letters about the fact that the security of the auction at the Kunst auction house would be strengthened, and the fact that Luke's director, Ivan Luke, is the main host of the Kunst auction house. The man's rude face came to his mind. Is he the main host of the auction this time? Perhaps Ivan Luke will make the event even bigger, especially to make up for the scandal at the banquet hall. It will attract people, hold more spectacular ceremonies, and increase costs. He will restore his collapsed image by making a big fuss this time, and solidify his stake as a director at Luke. A faint smile formed around Rudger's mouth. I'm looking forward to it. If the auction ends without a hitch, Ivan Luke will be able to make up for what happened out of his father's sight. If it ends without a hitch, it's a pity for Ivan that he does not know that the man he quarreled with at the banquet hall is secretly attending the auction. Rudger, who had been thinking that far, folded the newspaper because the person he was waiting for came. Are you here? You said you were a teacher. Can you come out like this early in the morning? Looking at Violetta staring at me with a slightly dissatisfied gaze, I got up from my seat. You don't seem to be in a good mood. If you call someone as a guide early in the morning, everyone will be like that. For that, I think you put a lot of effort into your makeup. Makeup is like armor to a woman. It takes a long time to prepare. So it was. Violetta was dressed a little differently than before. At that time, she wore a black dress with a strange atmosphere to be formal, but this time, it was more of an easy-to-move activity suit. She wore long leather boots on the legs and a leather corset fitted to the waist, and a wide-brimmed hat that blocked the sunlight on her head. After all of her burns were healed, she no longer wore the black cotton yarn that covered her face. It's a suit that an adventurer or mercenary would wear. There is nothing more comfortable than this when moving around. Let's go, we have to see what has changed. Yeah. There is only one reason why Rudger came out to Leathervelk early in the morning. It was to confirm the changed appearance of the slums. Violetta was already anxious to show him the changes. Her thorny attitude from when they first met disappeared, and now she looked like an excited young woman. Now, look, this is the new street. Oh, the streets of the dirty, smelly slums I had seen before were completely cleaned up. As you said, I used the money and hired people. Cleaning, grooming, eliminating the existing shabby buildings and building new ones required a huge amount of money and manpower, and this is a place full of surplus manpower that other people don't use. I spent more than 80% of the budget on this. The huge amount of money in the vault of Belbot Rixon and the money from the Red Society was used to fix the slums. The effect was clear because the dying streets were starting to come alive. As you said, I will make this road a street of artists. The dark and dull slums were gone and carpenters were seen tearing down shabby houses and working hard on new houses. The children, who used to always sell newspapers, were seen running around. This is the newly opened clothing store. Violetta had brought Rudger to a clothing store with large glass windows showing the inside display. There, people belonging to the women of the Black Rose were moving around eagerly arranging and cutting clothes, but out of sight, countless steam engines were also moving and pulling out fabric. First of all, I'm focused on using machines to pull out as many clothes as I can. Popular clothes come first, but when we get to a certain level, we're going to challenge the luxury brand. You must be confident, right? The opponents are those who have long taken root in the empire beyond this city. I have always dreamed of this moment. Violetta smiled confidently. No matter how deep the roots of a tree are, if it is rotten, it will fall down when the wind blows. That's a good resolution. Would you like to look inside? No, thanks. I'll check the other places. Then I'll show you somewhere else. Roger has only checked one clothing store, but there are more places that need to be inspected. For more chapters, join my Patreon. Link in description.